The first thing I noticed when the cab turned onto Harbor Lane was my house, porch light glowing. The second thing was my neighbor dropping a laundry basket right in the middle of her yard and sprinting toward me in bare feet like the grass was on fire. I had been back on American soil for 4 hours after 6 months at sea with the Navy. I had built up a lot of expectations during those final lonely nights on watch. A hot shower, a real cheeseburger, my own mattress. Maybe the quiet satisfaction of unlocking my front door and hoping one particular woman would notice I was back. I had not pictured Lena Brooks charging across our patchy shared lawn in cut-off jeans, a faded blue t-shirt, and no shoes, shouting my name with so much feeling that my driver actually slowed down and said, "Man, I think somebody really missed you." I was 29 years old, a Navy electronics technician with a duffel bag stuffed with wrinkled uniforms, 3 books I never finished, and the kind of emotional lockdown that made people read me as calm when really I was just too scared to want things too much. Then Lena hit me like a warm front rolling in off the water. Not literally, almost. I had one boot on the curb and one hand on my sea bag when she reached me, pulled herself up short at the last second, and studied me like she needed to confirm I was real. "Caleb," she said. Just my name. After 6 months of radio checks, rank, last names, orders, and terrible coffee, hearing her say Caleb almost took my legs out. "Hey, Lena." That was everything I managed. Brilliant, I know. Shakespeare would have given up the pen out of embarrassment. She looked a little thinner than when I left, but not fragile. Lena was never fragile. She had the kind of face that made you want to understand what had put that small line between her brows and then spend the rest of your life making it go away. Dark hair falling loose from a clip. Green eyes bright in a way that could be tears or temper. With Lena, it was usually both. "You said Thursday," she said. "It is Thursday." "It's Wednesday." I blinked. "No, it's Caleb." I glanced at my watch. Still set to ship time. "Right," I said. "Well, somewhere out there, I'm technically punctual." Her mouth twitched. There it was. That little almost smile I had carried in my head, somewhere between the hum of engines and black water stretching to nowhere. The cab driver cleared his throat. "You want the bag, sailor?" Before I could say anything, Lena grabbed the strap of my duffel. "I've got it," she said. "It's heavy. I hauled your dead fern out of your living room in July. I can manage emotional baggage." "My fern died?" "It surrendered in the 2nd month. Very dramatic. I held a small service." I laughed, and the sound came out rusty. For 6 months, Lena had been the woman next door who sent me pictures of my mailbox after storms, complained about the raccoon treating both our trash cans like a buffet, and wrote emails that started with practical updates and somehow ended with me smiling at 2 a.m. She had been my neighbor for almost a year before I'd deployed. We weren't together. We had never kissed. We had never once said out loud that something lived between us, though it had been there in the way she brought soup when I worked late, and in the way I fixed the loose hinge on her back gate, and then stayed an extra hour because she opened wine and dared me to share one interesting Navy story that didn't involve wiring. I hadn't asked her to wait. That felt unfair. My father had been Navy too, and my mother spent half her marriage staring down driveways and pretending she didn't hate the sound of suitcases. I made myself a promise early on. If I ever loved someone, I wouldn't turn her life into a calendar of goodbyes. So I kept Lena in the safe category. Neighbor, friend, woman I thought about far too much beneath a sky full of stars. Now she was standing close enough that I could smell laundry soap and summer grass, my duffel strap over her shoulder like she had a claim on it. "You're barefoot," I said. She glanced down as though this surprised her. "I noticed you got out of the cab." "Also noticed. Why?" Her eyes came up to mine and the banter slipped for half a second. "Because I saw you," she said quietly. There are moments when the body understands before the brain gets around to it. Mine took one step toward her. Lena didn't step back. The cab pulled away, leaving us in the late afternoon stillness. A sprinkler ticked somewhere. A gull called out over the marina. My porch light glowed even though the sun hadn't fully dropped, and I realized she must have switched it on. "You left the light on?" I asked. She looked toward my house, then back at me. "Habit." "You have a habit of turning on lights in empty houses?" "I have a habit of arguing with you in my head and losing." That did something to me. I had survived rolling seas, 12-hour watches, homesickness that sat on my chest like a stone, and the stubborn male habit of refusing to admit I missed one woman's laugh more than I missed dry land. But Lena Brooks saying she argued with me in her head and lost nearly finished me right there on the curb. I reached for the duffel strap. My hand landed on hers by accident. Neither of us moved. Her fingers were cool. Mine were calloused and probably smelled faintly of ship, airport, and regret. She looked at our hands, then at me, and for one suspended second, the whole neighborhood faded. "You're really home," she said. "I am." "For how long?" There it was. The question I had sidestepped in every email. 3 weeks leave, I said. Then Norfolk for reassignment. Short rotation, probably stable for a while. Her face changed fast enough that I almost missed it. Relief first, then caution. Then something guarded, like she was closing a door I hadn't known was open. "Shore rotation," she repeated. "Yeah, that's good." "It is." "Then why do you look like you're about to say sorry for it?" "Because you looked relieved, and I wanted that relief to mean what I hoped it meant." Instead, I said, "Because I forgot how to talk to people who aren't standing in formation." She gave me a soft, dangerous smile. "Lucky for you, I don't take orders." "No," I said, "you really don't." She laughed, but her eyes shone. Then, without asking permission, she stepped forward and hugged me. Not the polite airport kind. Not the stiff, careful squeeze of two people avoiding awkwardness. She wrapped both arms around me and held on. I closed my eyes. For a second I was back at sea, standing under a hard white moon reading her message for the 10th time, because she had written, "The neighborhood feels too quiet without your terrible truck turning over at 6 a.m. For a second I let myself put my arms around her and feel what home was shaped like. She fit against me like she had always been supposed to be there. Then she whispered so quietly I almost blamed the wind. "I told myself I wouldn't do this." My arms tightened before I could stop them. "Do what?" She pulled back just enough to look at me. Her hand stayed on my chest. My heart, traitor that it was, hammered right beneath her palm. "Run," she said. "Hug you. Act like I had any right." "You have the right." The words came out before I could make them safe. Lena's lips parted. That was when my front door opened. Not her house, mine. A man stepped onto my porch holding a yellow envelope, wearing khakis and a navy polo, with the uncomfortable expression of someone who had just walked in on something he wasn't supposed to see. Lena went still. I looked from him to her. "Caleb," she said, and her voice had completely changed. "Before you say anything, there's something I need to explain." For one ridiculous second, my brain ran through it like I was still on deployment. Unknown. Male, secured residence, neighbor with key access, yellow envelope, possible problem. Then the man raised one hand and said, "Sorry, I knocked, but nobody answered. Ms. Brooks said I was expected sometime this week." Lena's grip on my shirt tightened once, then dropped. "Caleb, this is Mr. Bellamy," she said. "He owns Bellamy Restoration." The man nodded. "Welcome home." I stared at him, then at my open front door, then at Lena. Restoration. She tucked a loose piece of hair behind her ear. She only did that when she was nervous. I had learned that over 6 months of carefully not counting how many small details about her I had memorized. "There was a storm in August," she said. "You told me a branch came down." "A branch did come down," Mr. Bellamy winced. "Through the corner of the roof." My eyes went straight to her. "You said it missed the house?" "I said it missed the porch swing." "Lena?" She lifted her chin, stubborn as a flag in a gale. You were in the middle of the ocean. What was I supposed to do? Email me. She gave me a look. Hi, hope your classified equipment is cooperating. Also, your guest room has a skylight now. Despite everything, the corner of my mouth pulled up. That would have gotten my attention. It got mine too, when the rain started coming through your ceiling. Mr. Bellamy cleared his throat. She handled it fast, saved you a lot of damage. Roof's patched, drywall's done, flooring in the back room is replaced. I just came by to drop off the invoices and warranty paperwork. I looked at the envelope like it was live ordnance. How much? Lena's eyes narrowed. Don't start. Oh, I'm starting. Then stop. Did you pay for repairs on my house? Temporarily? That is not an answer. It absolutely is an answer. It's just one you don't like. Mr. Bellamy had the good sense to study the trees. I dragged a hand across my face. I was tired enough that the world had soft edges, but not so tired that I missed the way Lena positioned herself between me and the truth, like she thought she could physically block it. How much, Lena? She crossed her arms. Less than it would have cost if I let your house fall apart while you were gone. Also, not an answer. No, but it's still true? Mr. Bellamy held out the envelope. There's a payment schedule inside. Ms. Brooks covered the deposit in first stage. Insurance reimbursed most of it after the claim cleared. What's left isn't bad. I took it slowly. Insurance claim. Deposit. While I had been marking time by duty rotations, Lena had been standing in my waterlogged guest room calling contractors, fighting with insurance, and protecting a house that didn't belong to her. Protecting my home. I looked at her, and something in my chest gave way so sharply it hurt. You didn't tell me, I said. Her face softened. You sounded so tired in your emails. I was tired. Exactly! I still would have wanted to know. I know. She looked down at her bare feet in the grass. That's why I didn't tell you. Mr. Bellamy took a step back. I'm going to leave you two to it. Thank you, Lena said quickly. He nodded to me. Good to meet you. Everything's solid now. She made sure of that. When his truck pulled away, silence settled over the yard. I should have been angry. A reasonable man might have been. But all I could think was that Lena had been alone in my house during a storm, standing under a leaking ceiling, choosing to carry a problem that belonged to me because she believed it would spare me one more thing to worry about while at sea. You had no right, I said quietly. Her face closed. I know. And you had every right, I added. She blinked. I stepped closer. Both things can be true. That sounds like something you picked up from a ship chaplain. No, from trying to understand you. That made her mouth tremble. I hated that. Not because it made her look weak. Lena crying never made her look weak. I hated it because I hadn't been here to see how much she had carried, hadn't been here to take even half of it. You should have told me, I said. You would have worried. Yes. You couldn't do anything. I could have known. Her eyes lifted to mine. There was the wound. Not the roof, not the money, the knowing. I didn't want to be another thing you were waiting on, she whispered. I forgot the envelope, forgot the open door, forgot the faint exhaust still hanging in the warm air. You were never a thing I was waiting on. She let out a small laugh, disbelieving. Caleb, you were the opposite. I took a breath. There were easier things to say, safer ones. I had spent half a year using them. Some nights your emails were the only part of the day that felt like mine. Her eyes went glassy. Your terrible truck started in one of my dreams, she said like a confession. I woke up angry because it wasn't real. You hate that truck. I missed hating it. That did it. I reached for her hand. This time it wasn't accidental. Her fingers slid into mine like she had already made her decision, and the simple pressure of her palm against mine felt more significant than any storm I'd ever sailed through. She looked at our joined hands, then back up at me. "What are we doing?" "I was hoping you'd know." "Absolutely not. I ran across the yard barefoot. I'm clearly not the strategic one here. You looked pretty strategic negotiating with that contractor." "That's different. Drywall doesn't look at me like that." "Like what?" She stepped closer, a flicker of challenge moving through the shyness. "Like you forgot the rest of the world has people in it." I didn't answer because she was right. The rest of the world did have people in it. At that moment, none of them mattered. Her thumb moved once across my knuckles. Careful. Asking. I had imagined kissing Lena probably 100 times and talked myself out of every version. On her porch, the night she made me taste a pie she swore was terrible. In my driveway the morning I shipped out, when she stood in a sweater with her arms wrapped around herself and smiled too wide. Out on the water, when loneliness made honest men out of cowards. But now she was here, barefoot in my yard, having kept my house standing and my porch light burning. "I don't want to repay you," I said. Her brow pulled in. "What? I mean, I will, for the repairs, every cent, but that's not why I'm standing here holding your hand." "Oh," a pause. "And if you asked me to dinner tonight, it wouldn't be because you're grateful?" "Because I have wanted to take you to dinner since the night you stole my socket wrench and claimed it was community property. You left it on my steps. I was fixing your gate and doing it very slowly. You liked my company." "I know," she said. I laughed quietly. "You knew." "Caleb, you explained hinges for 20 minutes. Nobody likes hinges that much." Heat crawled up the back of my neck. "You let me." "I liked your company too." The air shifted. She wasn't just receiving what I was offering. She was meeting me there, step for step, brave enough to be honest where I had spent months being careful. "Dinner," she said. "Tonight? You just got home. I can stay awake. You look like you could fall asleep standing up. Then breakfast, tomorrow." Tomorrow. Her smile finally broke free, wide and bright and aimed straight at me. "A date?" she asked. The word settled between us like a signal flare. I squeezed her hand. "Yes. A date. Not a thank you breakfast." "No? Not a neighborly meal?" "Definitely not." Her gaze dropped to my mouth. My pulse kicked hard. "Lena," I said, and my voice came out rougher than I intended. "Yes." "If I kiss you right now, it's not because you fixed my roof." Her smile went unsteady. "Good, because if you kiss me right now, it better be because you spent 6 months thinking about it." "Longer," I said. Then I kissed her. Soft at first because I was still learning what I was allowed to want, but Lena made a small sound against my mouth and stepped into me, her free hand curling into the front of my shirt, and every careful restraint I had built went overboard. I kissed her like shore, like sunrise, like the first real breath after coming home. When we finally broke apart, she pressed her forehead against my chest. "Welcome home, Caleb," she whispered. I held her there in the yard, the envelope crumpled in my fist, the front door still open behind us. For the first time in 6 months, home wasn't a place. It was Lena, barefoot and breathless, choosing me right back. I slept 14 hours, not on purpose. I meant to unpack, shower, read the contractor paperwork, maybe stand in my guest room admiring the ceiling Lena had apparently saved from becoming an indoor weather event. Instead, I sat on the edge of my bed to take off one boot and woke up the next morning with that boot still on, my phone dead, and a folded note on the nightstand. "You look deceased. I took the other boot off. Breakfast at 9 if you're alive. If not, I'm keeping your good skillet. L." I stared at that note for a full minute with the stupidest grin on my face. Then I realized it was 8:47. The fastest shower of my life still ran too long. I showed up at Lena's porch at 9:06 with damp hair, a clean shirt, and the kind of nerves I hadn't felt since my first day in uniform. She opened the door before I knocked. "You're late." "I was unconscious." "Excuses. You stole my boot." "I saved your circulation." She wore a yellow sundress, simple and easy, dark hair loose around her shoulders, still barefoot. Apparently, Lena without shoes was going to be a permanent condition for me. I forgot every clever thing I had rehearsed. Her smile tilted. "You're staring." 6 months at sea. My social skills are still docking. That wasn't a denial. "No," I said. "It wasn't." Her cheeks went pink and she stepped aside to let me in. I had been inside Lena's house before, but never like this. Never for a date. Never with the memory of her mouth still living on mine. Her kitchen smelled like coffee, butter, and cinnamon. 2 plates sat waiting on the small table by the window. She had put flowers in a mason jar between them, little white ones from the wild patch near the fence. "You did all this?" I asked. I poured cereal into bowls with great emotional commitment. I looked at the table. "That is French toast." "Fine." I panicked romantically. The word romantically unfolded something warm in my chest. "I like your panic." "Good. Because there's bacon, too." I sat across from her, and for a while we managed to pretend breakfast was about the food. It wasn't. It was about her bare ankle grazing mine under the table and both of us going still, about her laughing when I got syrup on my thumb and then going quiet when I licked it off, about the strange sweetness of looking at someone in morning light and realizing you had crossed a line you never wanted to step back over. "So," she said, pushing a strawberry around her plate, "do we talk about the kiss?" I was hoping to schedule a follow-up. Her eyes snapped up. "That's your official position?" "My official position is classified." "Coward?" "Sailor," I corrected. "Same problem, better posture." I laughed and she grinned at her coffee cup. Then the grin softened. "I don't want to pretend it didn't happen," she said. My fork stopped. "I don't either. And I don't want you thinking I kissed you because I was overwhelmed, or because you came home and I got sentimental, or because I accidentally developed some kind of hero complex around your roof." "Lena," she took a breath. "I kissed you because I wanted to. Because I've wanted to for a while." The honesty in her voice stripped every defense I had. I reached across the table, palm up. She looked at my hand for half a second before putting hers in it. "I wanted you before I left," I said. "I wanted to ask you out. I didn't because I thought leaving right after would be selfish. Deciding for me wasn't your finest moment. I know. I'm an adult woman, Caleb. I pay taxes. I go 10 rounds with insurance adjusters. I can decide whether a man is worth missing." My throat tightened. "And was I?" Her fingers squeezed mine. "Annoyingly, yes." I laughed, but it came out rough. She ran her thumb along the inside of my wrist, and such a small touch found every lonely place I had hidden from. "I was scared too," she admitted. "Not just of missing you, of being ridiculous, of falling for the man next door who fixes gates and leaves for months and writes emails about ocean sunsets like he doesn't know how romantic they sound. Those were meteorological observations. They were poetry with coordinates." I stared at her. She smiled. "I saved them." All the air left my lungs. "You saved my emails?" "Not all of them." "Lena." "Fine, all of them." I was standing before I thought better of it. Her eyes went wide as I came around the table. "Are you about to gloat?" "No." "Good, because I can still take the bacon back." I held out my hand. She took it, confused, and stood. The kitchen was small. There wasn't much space between the table and the counter, but I pulled her gently into that space anyway. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "I'm choosing you on purpose." Her expression changed. The little line between her brows appeared. the one I always wanted to smooth away, but this time it came from something tender. I cupped her face. Not because you kept an eye on my house, not because you waited at the mailbox, not because you did anything for me, because you're you, because you make me laugh when I've forgotten how, because I heard your voice in my head when things got hard, because I'm home and the first place I wanted to be this morning was here. Her hands settled at my waist. You're very dangerous after coffee, she said softly. I haven't even finished the cup. Then kiss me before you become unstoppable. So I did. This kiss was slower than the one in the yard, less surprise, more intention. Her hand slid up my back and mine found her waist, and for a few breathless seconds the whole world narrowed to cinnamon on her lips and sunlight in her hair. When we parted, she stayed close. I need to tell you something, she said against my collar. My hands stayed gentle. Okay, she pulled back. When the roof got damaged, I used the emergency key you gave me, I know. And after the contractor started work, I kept going back to check. Air out the rooms, make sure nothing smelled like mildew. Lena, that's fine. I found the small wooden box in your closet. My stomach dropped. Not because anything terrible was in it, because something honest was. It fell when one of the workers moved the storage bins. I wasn't looking for it. It opened and I saw the letters. Letters from my mother. Photos. A postcard my father had sent from deployment before he missed my 10th birthday. A ring that had belonged to my grandmother, and which, according to my mother, was to be given only when I was brave enough not to repeat the men in our family. I put everything back right away, Lena said quickly. But I saw one letter from your mom, the one about not letting love feel like a waiting room. I let go of her and stepped back, not because I wanted distance, because the room had tilted. She wrapped her arms around herself. I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. I looked at her standing in the kitchen she had made warm for me, brave enough to admit something that could have ruined the whole morning. And I realized this was the moment I normally retreated, turned feeling into a locked room, made myself easy to miss because I never fully arrived. I didn't want to be that man with her. My dad was gone a lot, I said. My mom loved him. It cost her. I watched it. I promised myself I wouldn't ask anyone to live like that. Lena's face softened. So you made the decision for me. Yeah, I swallowed. I thought I was being honorable. You were being lonely? The words landed clean and true. I nodded. She came to me then, not hurrying, not trying to fix anything, just closing the gap I had made. I don't need you to promise you'll never leave, she said. You're Navy. I understand what that means. I need you to promise you won't disappear while you're standing right in front of me. I took her hand and pressed it to my chest. I promise. Her eyes shone. Good. A breath. And I'm sorry I made decisions for both of us. You should be. I was excellent girlfriend material the entire time. Girlfriend? Her chin lifted, cheeks going pink. Hypothetically, I smiled. I'm very interested in testing that hypothesis. She laughed, and I kissed her forehead because I couldn't help it. Then my phone, now charging on her counter, buzzed back to life. Once. Twice. Again. Lena glanced over my shoulder. I saw the preview notification from my commanding officer. Call ASAP. Reassignment update. The old instinct hit first, brace, lock down, pull away. But Lena's hand was still over my heart. So I looked at her instead. Whatever it is, I said, I'm not disappearing. She nodded, scared, but smiling. Then answer it, sailor. I'll be right here. I took the call on Lena's back porch because I needed air, not distance, air. That difference mattered, and I made sure she knew it before I stepped outside. I'm not running, I told her. She leaned against the kitchen counter with her arms folded, working hard to look casual and failing completely. I didn't say you were. You had a face? I have many faces. That one said, if he goes emotionally unavailable, I'm throwing his skillet into the bay. It's a quality skillet. I smiled despite the knot in my stomach. Then I answered. 6 minutes later, the knot had become an anchor. My commanding officer was direct, as always. Shore rotation was still happening, but the timing had shifted. A training billet had come open early in Virginia. They wanted me there in 10 days, not 3 weeks. After that, 8 months minimum, stable hours, no deployment on the near horizon. Good news professionally. Personally, it felt like someone had taken 13 days right out of my hands. When I came back inside, Lena had cleared the table but left my coffee untouched, covered with a small saucer to keep it warm. The sight nearly finished me. She turned from the sink. "How bad?" "Not bad," I said. "Just soon." Her shoulders dropped a fraction. "Soon like 10 days?" 10 days. The words sat between us. 10 days to be home. 10 days to straighten out what 6 months of silence had bent. 10 days to figure out what Lena and I were brave enough to become. She dried her hands slowly. "Virginia." I nodded. "Norfolk Training Command, not a ship. Not right away." "That's good." "It is?" She waited. I hated how well she could already read me. "But I wanted more time here." "With your house?" she asked softly. I looked at her. "With you." Her expression wavered, then steadied. She crossed the kitchen and stopped in front of me, close enough that I could see the small freckle near her left cheekbone. "Caleb," she said, 10 days is not nothing." "It's not enough." "No, it isn't." She pressed 2 fingers to the center of my chest, right where her hand had been before the call. "But if you use that as an excuse to start saying goodbye early, I'm going to be very annoyed." A laugh broke out of me before I could stop it. Her mouth curved. "There he is. You're bossy. You like it?" "I do." The words came out lower than I meant them. Her eyes warmed. I reached for her waist and she came willingly, hands sliding up my arms. For a minute we just stood in her kitchen holding each other while the future pressed against the windows. "I don't know how to do this," I admitted. "Neither do I." "That doesn't scare you?" "Yes, not as much as pretending I don't want it." I bent my head and kissed her. Nothing frantic in it. No trying to erase the phone call or argue with the calendar. It was a choice, slow and deliberate. Her fingers curled at the back of my neck, and when she sighed against my mouth, something inside me finally stopped bracing. When we parted, I rested my forehead against hers. "Come with me tonight," I said. "To Virginia?" That escalated quickly. I laughed. "Dinner, somewhere that doesn't involve me passing out in your French toast?" "You didn't pass out in it." I considered it. She pretended to think it over. "A real date? With shoes?" Her eyes dropped to her bare feet. "Ambitious?" "I'll pick you up at 7. You live 20 feet away." "I'll still pick you up. Should I make you wait on the porch?" "Absolutely." "Should I come out and ask if you're the man my mother warned me about?" "Only if I get to say yes." Her smile went soft enough to hurt. "All right," she said. 7. I spent the rest of the day doing practical things badly. I unpacked half my sea bag, discovered the guest room looked better than it had before the storm, and read through the repair paperwork with quiet amazement. Lena had negotiated prices down, documented every receipt, and left sticky notes in the margins. "Insurance adjuster tried something here. I handled him. Do not pay this twice. Yes, I know you hate the paint color." "You're welcome." I stood in that repaired room laughing quietly to myself, understanding that she had left pieces of herself all over my house. Not intrusions. Care. At 7 sharp I stood on her porch in a button-down I had ironed twice and still not improved. The door opened. Lena stepped out in a dark green dress with silver earrings, her hair pinned up except for one curl that had escaped near her jaw. Strappy little sandals, legs that went on long enough to be a public hazard. I forgot how doors worked. Words, too. She glanced down at herself. Bad? Devastating. Her cheeks flushed. That better be a compliment. It's a warning to the general public. She locked her door, smiling. You clean up well yourself. Sailor. I ironed. I can tell you attempted something. Ouch. She slipped her hand into the crook of my arm. Don't worry. I prefer a man with reachable flaws. The restaurant was a seafood place on the marina, relaxed enough that I didn't feel cornered, nice enough that Lena looked like she belonged in candlelight. We sat outside under string lights while boats rocked in their slips and the sky turned violet over the water. For once I didn't talk about leaving. We talked about everything else. She told me about her work restoring old books at the county archive, how she loved saving things people had written off as too far gone. I told her about the ongoing war aboard ship over the last decent coffee mug. She laughed so hard at my impression of Chief Morales that the couple at the next table looked over. Then the breeze lifted a strand of hair across her cheek, and I reached over before thinking. May I? Her laughter eased into something quieter. She nodded. I tucked the curl behind her ear, my fingers lingering at her jaw. Her skin was warm from the last of the sun. She leaned barely into my touch. You keep asking permission like I might change my mind, she said. I'm trying to get this right. Getting it right doesn't mean never being bold. I let my thumb brush her cheek. Noted. Her gaze dropped to my mouth. Dinner sat untouched for a moment. Afterward we walked along the marina, her hand in mine, shoulders bumping. Near the end of the pier she stopped beside a weathered bench. This is where I came the night your roof got hit, she said. After the contractors left, I was soaked, furious, and convinced I'd made all the wrong calls. I sat here and wrote you an email about Mrs. Alvarez's cat instead. Why? She looked out at the dark water. Because I wanted you to write back. If I had told you the truth, you would have called, and I would have fallen apart. If I told you about the cat, you'd send back something dry and ridiculous, and I could pretend things were normal. I stepped behind her and wrapped my arms around her waist. She leaned back against me like she had been waiting all day to fit there. I'm sorry you had to be strong through that alone, I said. I'm sorry I didn't trust you with my mess. I want your mess. She turned in my arms, eyes bright. Careful, there's a lot of it. I have storage space. Your guest room does have new flooring. I kissed her there under the marina lights, smiling against her mouth because she smiled first. By the time I walked her home, the night had settled soft around us. At her door, she didn't let go of my hand. I don't want 10 days to feel like a countdown, she said. Then we don't count down. What do we do instead? I looked across the yard at my porch light, then back at her. We build something that can hold up over distance. Her fingers tightened. That sounds serious. It is. She opened her mouth, but a voice cut through the dark. Lena. We both turned. A man stood near the sidewalk, half in shadow, holding a bouquet of roses like an apology he had purchased on the way over. Lena went rigid beside me. His eyes found our joined hands. I guess, he said, voice edged. That explains why you stopped answering my calls. Lena's hand went cold in mine. The man stepped forward, roses hanging at his side. Tall, polished. The kind of guy who probably owned a shoe rack and used the phrase, circle back, without irony. I looked at Lena first, not at him. Her face had gone pale, but her chin was up. Who is he? I asked quietly. My ex, she said. Colin. Colin let out a short laugh. That's all. Just your ex. Lena's fingers tightened around mine, not asking to be rescued, anchoring herself. That's all you are, she said. I admired her so much in that moment, it actually hurt. Colin's jaw tightened. I drove 2 hours because you wouldn't pick up. That should mean something. His eyes cut to me. And you are? I felt the old Navy switch inside me. Assess, control, steady. But Lena shifted and answered first. He's Caleb. He's with me. With me. 2 words, and the whole night rearranged itself. Colin heard it. His face twisted, more wounded pride than heartbreak. "You move fast." Lena actually laughed, short and disbelieving. "I waited 2 years for you to choose me, Colin. Then I spent 6 months missing a man who made me feel more seen from the middle of the ocean than you ever did across a dinner table." "Don't talk to me about fast." The roses drooped. I said nothing, because this was hers. She stepped forward, my hand still in hers. I stopped answering because we were done. Not because of Caleb. Not because of anyone else. Because I was done shrinking myself, hoping you'd finally decide I was enough. Colin looked from her to me, like he expected an apology from me for being there. I didn't offer one. Finally, he set the roses on her porch railing. "You'll regret this." Lena's voice softened without weakening. "I already carry enough regret. This won't be part of it." For a moment I thought he'd push back. Then he turned and walked to his car. We stood without speaking until the taillights disappeared. Then Lena exhaled. I turned to her. "You okay?" "No," she said. "But I'm proud of myself." "You should be." Her mouth trembled. "I hated that you were here for that." "I wasn't," I said. "I was standing next to you while you chose yourself. Then you chose me out loud." I brushed my thumb across her knuckles. I'm not going to pretend I hated that part. A short, breathless laugh escaped her. Then she stepped into me, both arms around my waist. I held her under the porch light with the unwanted roses beside us, and the night settling around our shoulders. "I don't want to be someone you run to because I feel safer than him," I said into her hair. She pulled back, eyes fierce. "You're not a hiding place, Caleb." "No." She touched my face. "You're the man I wanted before I even knew if wanting you was allowed." My chest went tight. "I'm allowed?" Her smile broke open. "You're encouraged." So I kissed her at her front door, not to erase Colin, not to prove anything to anyone. Because Lena had chosen me, and I wanted her to feel me choosing her right back. The next 10 days didn't feel like a countdown. They felt like building. We painted my guest room a color Lena called coastal fog, and I called gray with better branding. We ate takeout on my floor and argued about where the bookshelf should go. She made me buy new porch bulbs because, she informed me, returning sailors deserve appropriate lighting. I fixed her back gate properly this time, and when I took too long, she stood next to me with lemonade and said, "Careful, if you explain hinges again, I'll know you're flirting." I am flirting. "Then continue." So I did. On my last night before leaving for Virginia, we sat on my porch swing, her legs folded under her, my arm around her shoulders. The street was quiet except for crickets and the distant sound of the marina. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Me too." She looked up. "You're allowed to say that?" "New policy." "I like it." I took a small key from my pocket and held it out. She stared at it. "Caleb, it's not a test, not pressure, just the truth." I placed it in her palm. "You already made this place feel like home while I was gone. I want you to have a key because I want you in my life. Not because I need someone to check the pipes." Her eyes filled. "I don't want to be your house sitter." "You're not. What are you?" I swallowed. "The woman I'm falling in love with." Her breath caught. The words scared me less once they were out. She climbed into my lap, right there on the porch swing, hands framing my face. "Good," she whispered, "because I'm already there." Then she kissed me like a promise that doesn't need perfect timing to mean something. 10 days later I left. But this time, I didn't disappear. We talked every night, sometimes for hours, sometimes for 6 minutes, while I ate vending machine food in a training hallway. She mailed me handwritten notes tucked inside pages of books she couldn't salvage. I sent her sunrise photos from Virginia labeled meteorological observations just to hear her call them poetry. 3 months in, she came to Norfolk. I took her to a diner near the base, and afterward we walked along the waterfront while gulls argued overhead like badly managed children. She slipped her hand into mine and said, I could get used to missing you less. 6 months later, Lena moved her book restoration work to a conservation lab in Virginia. Not for you, she said firmly, carrying a box into our small rental house 2 blocks from the bay. Better humidity control. Of course. And because your skillet missed me. Naturally. And maybe because I love you. I set my box down and crossed the room. That one seems relevant, she smiled a little soft, maybe slightly. A year after the day she sprinted barefoot across the yard, we went back to Harbor Lane to collect the last of my things. The repaired guest room was empty. The porch swing creaked in the same old rhythm. Her house next door had a sold sign in the yard. Lena stood in the grass between the 2 houses, barefoot again, wearing my grandmother's ring on her finger and laughing because I had just told her I still had 1 boot untied. I looked at her in that golden evening light and thought about the cab. The laundry basket dropped in the middle of the yard, the wild run across the grass, and the way I had once believed home was something you came back to alone. I had that completely wrong. Home was Lena running toward me before either of us was brave enough to name what we were. Home was a porch light left on. Home was her hand in mine as we walked away from 2 houses and toward one life. What would you have done if you stepped off a cab after 6 months away and your neighbor dropped everything to run barefoot across the yard? Have you ever had a moment like that, where someone's reaction told you the truth before they found the words for it? Share your story in the comments, and if you'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships where you'll find shorter, exclusive stories every week with no ads. If this one meant something to you, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.